Hello and welcome to this episode of Rebels Reaction. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
This week, we react and recap Visions and Voices. Christine, your one-word reaction.
Nightmarish.
Nightmarish. Okay, I could see that. Because you'll probably have nightmares tonight.
I probably will.
Cool. That's great for the both of us. I wrote down a plethora of words, and I will choose shift.
Shift. Oh.
Shift.
All right.
All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
You know of the rebellion against the Empire?
Perhaps you referred to the imminent attack on your rebel fleet.
Where is the rebel base?
I didn't know there was anyone willing to stand up against the Empire.
All right, this week we're recapping and reacting to Visions and Voices. Let's jump into the big three. Number one, Visions of Maul.
Yeah, that was kind of creepy.
Yeah, so Ezra starts the episode. They're in a briefing for an upcoming mission on Lothal, so kind of dovetailing nicely off of the end of last episode, attacking the factory on Lothal. And Ezra starts hearing Maul's voice, one, and then two, starts seeing him pop up around the base. But no one else sees him, so they think he's crazy.
Yeah.
And then he passes out. He wakes up and is still seeing Maul and almost lightsabers a rebel,
Yeah.
a nondescript rebel, before Kanan stops him.
Yeah. So it seems like he's just having this mental lapse. And then suddenly...
Number two, Bendu to Maul.
Ugh.
So Kanan takes Ezra to go see, they both go see Bendu to try to figure out what's going on. And Bendu's pretty much like, I told you not to mess with the holocrons.
Yeah. Told you so.
And then he asks Ezra what he really wants. And Ezra says, I want to stop seeing Maul. And Bendu says, well, don't turn around.
Yeah. And turns out Maul is real and actually is there.
Which is kind of crazy because were those actually visions or was it Maul doing something funky?
Yeah, was he really just like popping up and then disappearing, or was he just somehow affecting Ezra's force vision or whatever, giving him these visions of himself? Because no one else could see him.
Yeah, so I think when we find out that they kind of did a mind meld,
yeah,
with the holocrons and like shared memories, or something along those lines to be able to kind of communicate with each other, in part I think through the Force, but then in part just because they're
now linked.
Well, it's probably completely through the Force, but they're linked. That link is far more strong than it would have been otherwise.
Yeah.
With their holocron episode. So Maul convinces Ezra that they need to go figure out each other's information because their visions kind of got intertwined and they each just got some of the information they wanted and not all of it. Kanan, although not very excited about the prospect, finally admits that this is probably our best option, especially because Maul threatens to give up the rebel base.
Yeah. Also kind of interesting that he hasn't given up the base already. It shows that he's definitely... We knew that already, but it solidifies that he's definitely not aligned with the Empire. He's not even vaguely aligned with the Empire, that he wouldn't even give up their information.
I think he would if he didn't get what he wanted.
Well, yeah.
So he's He's almost kind of a
the things that he wants more
Yeah.
than beating them.
Yes. So that is really interesting in and of itself, that his motivation for revenge, as we get into the storyline, that makes a little bit more
Yeah.
sense. We kind of speculated as we ended the episode where they were looking at the holocrons, whether or not that was an Obi-Wan Kenobi motive or somebody else.
Yeah.
And we find out that it's probably Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Seems to be.
So Ezra and Maul go to Dathomir,
Yeah.
which we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
And Maul kind of gives Ezra a brief history, and we end up where the witches of Dathomir,
Yeah.
I can't remember its sisters.
I'm drawing a blank.
It's late at night.
Yeah.
I think.
It's a long day.
Please forgive us. The witches of Dathomir and the magic that the Force magic, which was an interesting statement that Maul made about Ezra asked if they wielded the Force, and Maul said yes, but in a different way
Yeah.
than you
like
and I.
part of it, and they drew their power from the actual planet itself.
Yeah. So that was interesting, getting a little bit
Night Sisters.
Night Sisters. Bam. It's at night, very late at night.
There we go.
So the Night Sisters. You sure?
Yeah.
Okay, good. As long as you're sure, I'll be sure.
Now you're making me second guess myself. Yes, it's the Night Sisters.
Night Sisters. I'm thinking Night Watch. There's a lot of groups that like the night.
Always the dark ones.
I guess so. Yeah, not good things happen at night. Except this podcast. So the Night Sisters and their magic are still somewhat existent,
Yeah.
as
which
we
is
find
cool.
out that their spirits are kind of contained within this cave, and
Yeah.
the
But they're also horrible.
yes. So we'll get into that in a sec, but I want to talk a little bit about Maul's sort of altar, or just the things he's collected.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of beckoning back towards the Clone Wars
Mm-hmm.
with various artifacts.
Wally-esque, collecting everything that he finds.
I wouldn't say everything he finds. I think he was very intentional about what he
yeah,
found.
he was. Just
But
reminded me of Wally.
it'll be really interesting to see some of those artifacts kind of come back, especially as Sabine takes the saber.
Yeah.
And a lot of things connecting to, obviously, Obi-Wan Kenobi, a shrine to his lost love.
Yeah.
I saw something online. It looked like written in blood on the wall.
I couldn't read it.
In
What did it
some
say?
language. It wasn't
Oh, okay.
English, but I saw somewhere that it said Kenobi.
Oh really?
Yeah. Or
Neat.
something along those lines, which it makes sense if he's kind of going crazy. The last time we saw Maul, he was kind of off his rocker.
Yeah.
That as he's collecting these things and continually motivated by the revenge that he wants, that he's going to kind of go to great lengths or crazy lengths to really communicate that. I don't know, obsess over it, really.
Well, his psyche is always on the verge of breaking. We see him in the Clone Wars the first time. He's this crazy, basically shadow creature.
Yeah. So there's this essence of this is a very dark place.
Yeah.
The spirits that are there demand flesh for the use of their magic.
Yeah.
Maul promises that to them, and pretty much then says, "Hey, Ezra, your friends will pay that debt."
Yeah. Oopsie.
And Sabine and Kanan are
Possessed.
by these spirits, fight. As Maul takes off and says, well, before he takes off, he's saying, "Hey, Ezra, this is your chance.
Yeah.
You could be my apprentice." And Ezra totally stands up to him, which is
great.
a departure from where he was at. I think again, it kind of keeps coming up, this maturing that Ezra is going through.
Mm-hmm.
I think the sort of buddy-buddy relationship he has with Hondo kind of fell by the wayside in recent episodes. And I think he had more of a respect for Maul and his abilities.
He did before, yeah.
But has seen how he betrays his friends and really, at this point, his family.
Yeah. He's starting to find value in other things, in things other than power.
Yes. So that was an interesting aside that kind of happens briefly, but then Maul takes off, and Ezra tries eventually successfully to rid Kanan and Sabine of these spirits by destroying their
source of power. So basically,
the altar that
ending their existence. I think
that's what it would seem. That's kind of the center of their power, and therefore, with that destroyed, their ability to exist, I guess.
Either exist at all or exist in the physical world.
Yeah.
Something is ruined.
Probably some link to the Force, but we don't know.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But then, and that kind of concludes the episode of Ezra sort of saving the day, and Sabine and Kanan kind of saying, and this is the last time we work with Maul ever again.
Yeah.
So that kind of gets us to the bottom line. I thought overall this is a great episode.
Yeah.
Super dark, super creepy.
Very different than the norm.
And I think that's where my word I know that's where my word comes in, but I think that's where a major shift for Rebels. This is a dramatic shift for Rebels, that we haven't really seen an episode kind of this dark, this intense.
Yeah.
I mean, I probably wouldn't show this. I think it's rated, I don't think it's Y7. I think it's like the equivalent of maybe PG-13 or somewhere between PG and PG-13, somewhere in there for the most part.
Of all of Rebels?
I think
or
so. All of
Okay.
Rebels. I think it's a Y7. So kids as young as 7 can watch it, according to the raters.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I would let my kid at 7 watch it.
Yeah.
It's closer to a PG-13 type thing.
Yeah, it was freaking me out. I mean, the glowing eyes and it's like glowing green and smoking eyes, that's a visual that would, even now, like, give me nightmares. Let alone our 9-month-old was toddling around and just freaking me out, so I kept making sure that she couldn't see the TV. Obviously she doesn't know what's going on because she's 9 months old, but those are still some pretty intense visuals.
Yeah, and it's something we haven't seen in Rebels so far. We saw it in the Clone Wars, and there was kind of a turning point for the Clone Wars, and then things really kind of followed in that vein from there on out.
Yeah.
A few episodes here and there that varied, but for the most part, it got far more intense. So my thought is that this is the shift towards that more intense themes, storylines for Rebels moving forward, which as we talked about last week, the Geonosis episodes that are coming up in a couple weeks, that those could potentially be sort of in line with that tone.
Yeah. Geonosis is kind of a dark place, so that makes sense.
Especially knowing what we do about Geonosis at this point in the timeline.
Yeah. And reading Catalyst.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot that is still to happen, and I think they're starting to set up the tone for the direction of at least the remainder of this season, if not the remainder of the series.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. I thought it was interesting that both Ezra and Maul end up seeing the same thing, so that they essentially have the same answer to two questions.
Yeah.
So obviously Maul is trying to see if Obi-Wan Kenobi's alive and where, and it would seem that the answer to Ezra's question of destroying the Sith at least starts with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, or Luke. Where Obi-Wan Kenobi is.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. And really one of the questions that I walked away with, or the biggest question I walked away with, was, will we see Obi-Wan Kenobi in the near future?
I hope so. That would be fun. That'd be really interesting.
It will be. Would you prefer to see him in animation or in live action?
As in Rogue One?
Well, not necessarily. I don't think Rogue One. I think in a Rogue One type story.
Oh, in a standalone
A standalone film.
Can I say both?
Well, you can, but I don't think we really are. I don't think we're going to get the choice.
Really?
At least in this context. I think we're being set up for this confrontation happening in Rebels.
Yeah.
It's likely going to take place in this season, I would assume.
Yeah.
Potentially a future season. But I don't really see a path forward with Rebels and Maul without a confrontation with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
As well as...
Well, it's kind of like how last season was building toward the Ahsoka and Vader/Anakin meetup.
Yeah. And I think that was a little bit different because we haven't seen Ahsoka in a live action.
Okay.
Whereas we've seen both Kenobi and Maul in live action.
And in animation.
Yeah, so we've seen them in both. But I think it's an opportunity that I think they could take advantage of in a live action context.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true, because it is...
Is it worthwhile
dramatic.
setting that up in Rebels?
Without getting to that point.
Yes. Which, as we're talking about it, the more I think about it, I think we're going to see... If we're going to see it at all, it's going to be in Rebels.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, is a lost opportunity because it would be awesome.
To have that be
super
a
awesome
full film.
Yeah, to see it live action, potentially in a film. If not, it'd be great. There's been rumors swirling for a long time of like a Netflix miniseries type thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Haven't you been listening to the other podcasts?
Sometimes.
Oh, sometimes.
Sorry.
We're busy.
I have a baby.
But that was really the question that I walked away with, and that's kind of where things concluded is when and where will we see Obi-Wan Kenobi? Because I think it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's likely going to happen in Rebels itself because Maul had such a great line of it ends where it began, or something very close to that.
Yeah.
He knows exactly where he's at because that's the first time that they came into contact. Not the first time they fought, but the first time they came into contact. So it would seem that as soon as Maul leaves Dathomir, he's probably heading to Tatooine.
Yeah.
Whereas Ezra doesn't go into all the detail of his vision and the context for it. He knows he's looking for Obi-Wan now, but he knows it's two suns. But Maul said it's a desert planet.
Yeah.
Whereas Ezra doesn't mention that at this point.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting piece of information that either Ezra doesn't have or doesn't think is important.
Yeah, doesn't realize that that's a big indicator of where it is.
So my assumption is Maul will get to Kenobi before the Ghost Crew does.
That would make sense.
If the Ghost Crew makes that contact at all.
Yeah. So I hope they do.
Yeah, and I think that'll be a really interesting piece of the overall story of Obi-Wan Kenobi and what's going on while he's on Tatooine.
Yeah.
And could lead to other avenues of exploration of that story.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the general feeling that I get now is, or at least thought that I have of Obi-Wan's story, is he just kind of hangs out on Tatooine and not a whole lot happens. things with Jawas, things with Sand People, watching after Luke, protecting Luke. We see a little bit in a couple comics, but we don't really get a ton otherwise.
Yeah, not near what he's capable of.
So is he going off world? Is he staying set and people are coming to him, i.e. Maul or others? So I'm really interested to see where that leads.
Well, it just reminded me of in the Ahsoka book, how when she looks into the Force to figure out, or basically to find her friends.
Yeah.
Obviously, she can't find Anakin anymore because he's essentially gone, turned into Vader. But then she looks for Kenobi and she can't find him either. So I don't know if he has just cut himself off completely from, if in cutting himself off from the galaxy, he's cut himself off from the Force too.
I don't think he has, because he has explicit instructions from Yoda to train with Qui-Gon.
Okay.
So I think it may be a different sort of use of the Force than Ahsoka is used to looking for.
Okay.
And I mean, I haven't looked at the star maps to see how far away they are, and I don't know if through
How
the
it works.
Force that's really an issue.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, distance doesn't make a huge impact on being able to communicate via the Force,
Yeah.
because we see Ezra talking with Yoda, and we know Yoda's on Dagobah. I don't
Yeah,
know
that's true.
relative to Lothal what the difference is there,
But probably far.
but it is interesting that as these Ahsoka really tried to, and we may be getting into a little bit of spoilery things here.
Sorry.
I don't think so. So just be a little forewarned. Skip ahead maybe 30 seconds. I'll put it in the show notes if you haven't read the Ahsoka novel yet. But she's trying to hide herself from other potential Force users or just people that would notice her using the Force.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't think that's really a spoiler. I mean, obviously we know she's...
Yeah, she already ran away, so
Yeah.
maybe that.
But Obi-Wan Kenobi's probably doing something similar. So I don't know if because they're trying to shield themselves that any connectedness that they might have isn't
That could make
there as
sense.
much.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of different pieces that could potentially fall together. There may be an opportunity for Ahsoka to show up again if she's
I really hope she's alive.
if she lives, which that would be pretty cool.
Yes.
Need a little bit of explaining, but would be pretty cool. So interesting situations and opportunities that are presented through this episode. Overall, bottom line, I think it was a very strong episode.
Yeah, it was.
I think drives the story forward in at least the Maul story arc,
Yeah.
and can really, there's a ton of potential for some really interesting things to happen. And it's becoming a little bit or far more clear that we kind of have two story arcs within this season. There's the stuff with Thrawn, and then there's the stuff with Maul,
Yeah.
and how the Ghost Crew, and really it seems to be an Ezra centric season.
Yeah.
That
Like it has been, but
yeah, I think season 1 was very Ezra centric, especially at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Season 2 seemed to be a little bit more whole group,
I guess that's true, yeah.
and then we're again focusing on Ezra as he seems to be the centerpiece towards driving this story on both sides of directly interacting with the Empire and Thrawn, and then exploring the Force with Maul.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what might happen. I
Yeah.
think there's a very strong possibility of seeing Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. exciting.
Anything else thoughts wise for the bottom line?
Yeah, I don't know. It was strong. I liked it. It scared me. I don't like scary things, but it was an interesting intense. And I think what the biggest difference for me was that the Night Sisters have always had a charm to them, even though they've been freaky. There was something intriguing and something about them that drew me to them. Like maybe it was their camaraderie or just their intense understanding of community within their group.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as in this episode, with them just as spirits, they lost all the goodness in them, and it was just all straight, scary creatures who are trying to kill off these people and take their bodies.
Yeah. Definitely an interesting interaction.
Yeah. This was weird for me, but I liked it.
And I think another really good link towards the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Which I think only makes the Rebels stronger because it's leaning a little bit on what's pre-existed story-wise for the Clone Wars, and creates a better link in terms of the overall timeline being cohesive as opposed to things not really happening as a part of the same overall story.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cool. And kind of another tip towards a widening of the galaxy, and a lot of things are going on at the same time within the story context.
Yep.
So I'm excited to see what we have in store in the next couple episodes, and then really the 2-part arc for Geonosis. I think it's going to be a good couple of weeks coming up.
Yeah.
And I think a strong finish to season 3. So we'll see. Hey, that wraps up this episode of Rebels Reaction. Be sure to check us out online at unmistakably.starwars.com, on Twitter at unmistakably.sw. Our main show should be dropping tomorrow, Tuesday. This week, I am actually on... I gotta remember what I'm the host of the show. I should know what it is. Star Wars on Tap. Usually it's Devin. This week it's me. Totally.
Again, it's been a long day.
Totally threw
We're
me off.
moving
Yes.
and have a baby.
So I'm going to be on 2 shows this week.
Wow.
Crazy. Star Wars on Tap. I sit down with a good friend of mine, grown up back home. We talk Star Wars, the economics of moisture farming.
Exciting.
It's a hoot and hollering time. Be sure to check it out this Thursday. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the primers for The Force Discourse and Rogue One. Great episodes. A few guest commentators than the usual crew. Always fun. And then this week, Rogue One.
Oh, man.
So exciting. It's going to be a good week. All right. For Rebels Reaction, I'm Tyler.
And I'm Christine.
Be sure to check us out the next time you see a Rebels episode. Until then, may the Force be with you.